Hello, my name is Jose Manuel, and I'm going to talk to you about the Cold War.
The Cold War is an active, restrictive rivalry that developed after World War II, which lasted from 1939 to 1945 between the United States of America and the Soviet Union, known as Russia, each of them with their respective allies. Following the surrender of Nazi Germany in May 1945, near the close of World War II, the initial wartime alliance between the United States and the Great Britain on the one hand and the Soviet Union on the other began to unravel. By 1948, the Soviets had installed left-wing governments in the countries of Eastern Europe that had been liberated by the Red Army. The Americans and the British feared the permanent Soviet domination of Eastern Europe and the threat of Soviet-influenced communist parties coming to power in the democracies of Western Europe. Who came up with the term? The term was first used by the English writer George Orwell in an article published in 1945 to refer that what he predicted would be a nuclear stalemate between, I quote George Orwell, two or three monstrous superstates each possess of a weapon by which millions of people can be wiped out in a few seconds. The Soviets were determined to maintain control of Eastern Europe in order to safeguard against any possible renewed threat from Germany, and they were intent on spreading communism worldwide. We will later talk on communism, largely for ideological reasons. The Cold War has solidified by 1947 to 1948, when U.S. provided under the Marshall Plan to Western Europe had brought those countries under American influence, and the Soviets had installed openly communist regimes in Eastern Europe. Communism is a political and economic doctrine in which private property and profit-based economy, with public ownership and communal control of at least the major means of production. It can be referred as higher and more advanced form of socialism, which we would talk further on. It was most commonly practiced by the Soviet Union government. It basically means that whatever you produce is free for anybody who's producing something else to use or to own part of. Socialism is a social and economic doctrine that calls for public rather than private ownership or control of property and natural resources. It is based on cooperation, so in a way, anything that anybody produces is a social product, and everyone who contributes to the production of good is entitled to share in it. An example of socialism nowadays is the government of Venezuela. Dictators in Venezuela have led to what probably is the biggest devaluation in history with using this doctrine as a tool. Capitalism. Capitalism is also called free market economy or free enterprise economy. Economy is an economic system dominant in the Western world since the breakup of feudalism, in which most means of production are privately owned and production is guided and income distributed largely through the operation of markets. Right now I'm gonna release an interview I did to my dad. His name is Leonik, and he's age 48. These are the questions I asked him, but later on you will hear me repeat them to him and he will answer. What were the countries that were the world leaders during this period? ¿Cuáles eran los líderes? Estados Unidos y Rusia. Why did countries who were allies during the wars become enemies afterwards?
Porque querían ver qué potencia tenía más control sobre el mundo.
Where did the Cold War take place?
Europa Occidental, Estados Unidos y parte de Rusia.
What opinion did the general public have on the Cold War?
Tenían miedo a que se desatara una tercera guerra mundial y por eso en ese en ese periodo la gente tenía mucho miedo.
What type of weapons did the two world powers have at their disposal?
Ellos tenían armamentos de destrucción masiva que son las armas nucleares.
In my opinion, I think it is strange that the Cold War has come this far. Even more strange with all the problems that we face nowadays. These two powers have tried to be the strongest country ever since World War II finished. When I think they should be allied to form the strongest power there is. However, we all know that is not possible. Nowadays, there are more than one Cold War, but they are not as controversial as one we or I talked about in this presentation. For example, there is the technological competition between China and the USA to reach the top of technological innovation. However, it is less aggressive. It is a less aggressive competition. The economic systems presented in this topic gave a lot to think. I presented three because although communism and socialism are very alike, I think I had to specify between socialism and capitalism. I would rather choose capitalism because socialism has affected the economy of a lot of countries badly through the years. So this is how I will conclude my presentation. I hope you like it. There's a bibliography. I really recommend you to check the original presentation that is supposedly below the where you enter the link. So I hope you liked it and I hope I get a good grade. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.